What's good, everybody? It's your brother Mad Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet, and I am black up in your face again with some more pro-black commentary. So this should be a short video, but there's something I want to talk about that I saw on social media, and it was from two particular creators. One that I had no idea who she is, but there's another. The other one is a popular one, Kevin on Stage, and basically what they were posting about is how they, as you know, both are in, long-term married relationships, and they talked about like how why they don't often, share everything that's going on in their actual marriage with the public. And the reason they said that is because they don't want to deal with all of the toxicity and the ridiculous comments from all of these single, lonely, and bitter people on social media that are involved in this whole gender war. Like Kevin on Stage was basically saying that, being a married man for so long, and I don't share everything because I don't want to be, the men will label you as a man a simp if you're a man doing something for your wife. And if the wife is doing something for her husband, then you'll have these bitter females come out and label her a pick me, right? And that's the typical thing that goes back and forth on social media with the gender war. Likewise, this female creator was basically saying the same thing. She's like, the reason you don't see too many married couples, sharing advice or giving advice as much as they used to is because, you people are so toxic. And the people she was talking about were, like I said, these single people involved in this whole gender war nonsense. Like you can't have a normal conversation with these people. Like it's funny because the fact that they're not in a relationship, they feel like they have all the answers. That's the crazy part. Is they're so confident and so aggressively ignorant about what a relationship is, but they want to still tell you, the married person, the person who's been married for years, what you should and what you should not be doing, right? And they're going to explain to you how to make a relationship work, even though they're not in a relationship, and you've been married for years, probably decades, and your relationship is going strong, right? But they want to tell you what to do. That's the crazy part. And when I saw those two posts, like I had to agree with both of them because someone like myself who also has been married for a long time, and even before my wife and I got married, we had been dating for 3 years before that. So we've been together for a long time, since our early 20s. So, for us, we feel, we're not going to come out and say we're perfect, but I feel that we have a better handle on how a relationship is supposed to work, right? Than someone who has never been in a relationship or who is single now, and they're going to tell you what works and what doesn't work. Obviously, the only thing you could probably tell me is how a relationship doesn't work, because either you've destroyed yours or you're just not in one, right? Or you picked the wrong person to be in a relationship with, right? But that's what we have on social media. There's an epidemic of people who are, broken or bitter, or maybe never been in a relationship at all. They make their whole they create this whole thesis and this mindset based on the group think of whatever, movement they're in, whether it be the men's rights movement or red pill as they call it, or maybe on the side of, the feminist or women's rights movements. So for these people, they don't really they don't think through things. They don't think about the nuances that exist within a relationship between two people. Anytime two people get together, there's always going to be clashes. That's just natural, because we as people, while we all might come from similar backgrounds, while we all might have some similar experiences, at the end of the day, we are still different people, right? So to combine any two people and any two mindsets is always going to be some conflict there. There's always going to be some conflict resolution there. There's always going to be some compromise, right? There are going to be things that you have to compromise on when you're in a relationship. And to these people who preach a lot of this nonsense, whether it be the men's rights movement or the women's rights movement, they see compromise as like almost like surrender. They see that as like the worst thing ever. They feel that, and they'll both preach that you can basically be in a relationship and not have to give up anything. Like you're just supposed to be stalwart and you're just going to bulldoze all over this other person. This other person is viewed as basically an object. They're not even talking, like, listen to how some of these people talk in these movements, these singles movements, in this gender war. They talk about the opposite sex like an object. They don't even talk about this person as another human being. They talk about them as an object to have on their arm, almost as like a prop or something, right? That's all a boyfriend or a husband is, or that's all a girlfriend or a wife is to them. It's a prop, right? So they feel that it's just, they're almost like in a relationship with themselves and they just want to make this other person mold into that, right? That's why they have all these ridiculous demands when it comes to being in a relationship. And that's just not how things actually work. Once again, when two people mesh together, there's always going to be some give and take and some compromise. Just on a basic level, when you think about two people moving in together, are you both going to keep all your stuff? Are you going to move into an apartment together and you're both going to have your same couches? Everyone's going to have, you're going to have two couches, two stoves, two sets of washing machines and dryers, right? Two refrigerators. Is that how you're going to do things in your new apartment? Are you going to have two of everything, or are you going to share? Is one person going to give up something that they've had for a long time and get some and just use the newer one, right? Or maybe you both get rid of something and get something new when you get into the new apartment. Because what my wife and I did when we got married, because we started getting a lot of wedding gifts, obviously. So we both got rid of all of our old stuff and just used the stuff that we got as wedding gifts. So like new microwaves and stuff like that, or new furniture that we got as gifts. That's what we decided to use, and that became ours and not just mine or hers. So that's just a basic microcosm of what I'm talking about. But even when it comes to things like, whether it be like finances or, where you might live or whatever, things happen. Life happens. There are times when my wife has had no money when she decided to go back to school and I was the only one working. Vice versa, there were times when the economy was bad, or when that year and a half or so where I had the tumor, that I was sick and I was going back and forth to the hospital, so I couldn't work as much as I wanted to, that, she took on more of the financial responsibility. And there have also been times when we bought this house, we were both working, so money was coming in from everywhere, right? I had multiple streams of income, so it wasn't that big of a deal, and also a regular job, so money was coming in every which way. My wife, she had her regular job, but it was also, part-timing, working at a college, right? Just doing part-time teaching. And that, so the money was coming in at that time. Same thing happened during the early parts of the pandemic. We both had multiple streams of income coming in. So there are times when things might happen where you might have to change things around. There's times where I've had to take off when helping out with my daughter with her schooling, or during the summer times. Usually I'm doing a lot of the chauffeuring of my daughter and kids and everything else. you know that's not something that I expected to do when I was younger, but there's something that I don't mind doing now, right? It's like I said, there's things that come up in relationships. There are things that come up in uh, parenting. There are things that come up when you have a household together that you don't expect to happen when you're single. Like I should have expected this, but I didn't think about this. But like when my wife's mother was sick and she had to travel back and forth to Florida to take care of her mother before her mother eventually passed away, I was basically damn near a single parent that whole time. This was for almost like a year, or not a year, but like half a year maybe, right? It seemed like longer than that because just the day in and day out of dealing with a child like that is tough. Like I don't see how single parents do it, but it was tough for me, right? But you put up with it because, like I said, this is what you signed up for when you decided to marry this person. Like when I married my wife, her family became my family, and likewise, my family became her family. So it's things like that that you have to think about when you two decide to combine with each other, when you decide to have a relationship with somebody. And this is why, once again, a lot of married couples, we don't share everything because then you have all these ignorant fools who have never been in a relationship or who may have had their heart broken somewhere or are just bitter for no reason. They want to come in and add their 2 cents and they don't know what the hell they're talking about, right? Or they're fronting just to front on the internet to make themselves seem cool or make themselves seem tough or whatever when they've gone through a lot worse. They've been used a lot worse in their own life. So it's a mess, and you can't really tell with social media who's telling the truth and who's not. But for the most part, like I said, a lot of married couples, we don't even want to open ourselves up to that type of over scrutiny from people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, from people who don't have any type of real idea of how a relationship is supposed to work. So, it makes sense, right? When these commentators, they made that statement, and I can understand as a person who's been married forever, we understand that we're so hyper focused on being a couple or being a family unit. We don't have time to be out here making podcasts or being rah rah for whatever movement is going on in the gender war at the time. So, we kind of just keep to ourselves, and these other people are out here. They got plenty of time on their hands because they don't have anybody to answer to. So, of course, they can get on social media or make videos, 10 to 13 videos a day, talking trash about the opposite sex, right? So that's all I want to impart to you guys, just something to think about. I know there's people here who are in long-term relationships who understand what I'm talking about, but this is why someone like me always kind of pushes back against a lot of the nonsense that you see in the gender wars, because a lot of it makes no sense whatsoever, and it's just not realistic. It's not realistic when you think about two people coming together that there's going to be no compromise, or no one's going to have to budge, or no one's going to have to change their way of thinking. That's impossible, right? So you folks let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. I would love to hear your opinions on this subject. Anyway, Mad Black, and I will be back with my foot on the devil's back.